if you are good at fitness, you should be good at business by default, because it's the same character traits in terms of like delayed gratification, hard work, like just being relentless and just keep going with things.
I've deadlifted every Wednesday for the last 10 years, and every Wednesday is the hardest part of my whole week. There is nothing that could come through my inbox that is anywhere near as scary as what I do on Wednesday afternoon. So nothing can touch me. You feel almost invincible.
We made a video about Gary Stevenson in terms of how he thinks it's impossible for poor people to make money. I now actually think it's easier than ever before, because you have more resources and things, and you can leverage and scale if you have the intuition and brain and the creativity in terms of how to use AI.
I would say to anyone listening who's thinking, okay, I want to start using AI in my business, I would time track and write down everything that you do already, and then figure out what can be AI-ified.
Dan Priestley explained it to me like this, that instead of, say, for example, having a marketing team of 100, you'd have a marketing team of 2 people with fucking weapons, who are really, really smart, really, really outside the box thinking, but are great to put the right prompts and information in the system, and they will outperform the 100. So if you're into AI, scaling businesses, making money, getting time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom, this is going to be very, very good. I can tell already from our initial conversation with our guest today, Jodie. Jodie is an expert in terms of AI, also digital nomad, travels tons and tons and tons. And I can tell you have a plethora of knowledge you're going to share with us today. One thing we were just actually touching on before we began is the difference and how also similar fitness and business are together. And in my opinion, if you are good at fitness, you should be good at business by default, because it's the same character traits in terms of like delayed gratification, hard work, like just being relentless and just keep going with things. Would you say that's something that's helped you in your career so far?
Yeah, for sure. I started powerlifting about 10 years ago, and I've deadlifted every Wednesday for the last 10 years. And every Wednesday is the hardest part of my whole week. There is nothing that could come through my inbox that is anywhere near as scary as what I do on Wednesday afternoon. So nothing can touch me. You feel almost invincible, because you're just used to doing hard things again and again. And it develops this level of resilience that I think anyone in business should have.
Do you think then, with AI and technology and the advancement of essentially the human race, we are losing that doing hard shit type of stuff that gives us the resilience to then endure difficult things, maybe in business and personal lives?
I don't know. How I feel about AI in general is we should use it to make ourselves more human, not less human. So I used to run a social media agency, and I started it in 2011 when social media wasn't so much a thing, and then sold it in 2021. But when I was running that, I was automating everything using like spreadsheets and systems and processes.
Zapier and stuff.
Everything like that, yeah. But also people, like it's like creating SOPs for people to follow and then upskilling them and training and coaching them to look after everything. But now it's like you can use AI for nearly all of that stuff. But now that we've freed up all of this time, way above and beyond what we could have freed up before without using AI, it's like now we have time to be interesting. Now we have time to train. Now we have time to travel. And so we can actually be more human, because we don't need to do all the admin work and all the really boring stuff that we were doing before ourselves.
Quick interjection of the podcast. If you're an online coach who's looking to scale the business, get their first 5K month, 10K month, or even get to 50 to 100K a month, we have helped hundreds of trainers do this at this point, and I've personally generated over $14 million online in the fitness industry. We have a proven methodology that works, provided you're willing to do the work. Now, if you want to book in a free business audit, we'll break down exactly where you are now, where you want to go, and what's currently holding you back. Hit the link below this video and below the podcast to find out exactly how we can help you. Pick a time, and we will walk you through the process of where your business is at and what exponential growth looks like. Now, back to the podcast.
So to go down a slightly different tangent, just gave me a thought. Put a video out recently talking about how Gary Stevenson, Dan Priestley mentioned me on the Direct Zero podcast, like not by me by name, but story about me. We made a video about Gary Stevenson in terms of how he thinks it's impossible for poor people to make money. I now actually think it's easier than ever before, because you have more resources and things, and you can leverage and scale if you have the intuition and brain and the creativity in terms of how to use AI. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I think the barriers to entry are very low. I feel like there are always people who don't want you to get started or don't want you to succeed. There are gatekeepers in every single industry. There are like big record labels didn't want artists to make their own songs. Big agencies, when I started out, didn't want freelancers taking their clients. Big AI companies don't want you starting your little AI businesses, but you can still do it. You can still break through. You just have to think differently. But thinking differently doesn't need any capital investment. Yeah, I think the barriers to entry are so small.
So you mentioned thinking differently there, and I would say probably in particular last 4 to 6 weeks, this is really something I've very heavily started to do with AI and the way we utilize it in our business, my personal life, and almost like it coaching and mentoring me in certain aspects. How can people think the right way to use AI? So in my opinion, this is going to be the next tool that comes in that's going to make the rich and the smart, like superhuman, go even faster and further than anyone else. And everyone else is going to be stuck in the same position.
So let's start with the wrong way to use it.
Okay.
The wrong way to use AI is as another shiny object. And I have been there for sure. And this is where you hear that there's this amazing app that can make you TikTok videos. And so you set up, you start the free trial, you start making TikTok videos. I started doing this. I'm not even on TikTok. And I was like, oh, this looks cool. Let's do this. So the wrong way to do it is just to go down this rabbit hole of all the stuff that's going on, look at all the AI influencers online and just subscribe to whatever they're talking about and sign up to all that stuff. I feel like using it that way will just end up being overwhelmed, being stressed out, feeling like you don't know what you're doing, and then just giving up with everything and feeling like, okay, AI isn't for me, it doesn't work for me. Whereas the right way to use it is go way back to basics and start with what you're already doing. And this is like, it's almost like, it's like the 101 of this. So I would say to anyone listening who's thinking, okay, I want to start using AI in my business, I would time track and write down everything that you do already and then figure out what can be AI-ified. And when I teach coaches how to do this, I call it the superpower matrix. And it's where you put down everything that you do in a matrix. And at the y-axis is how much you enjoy doing it. And the x-axis is how good you are at doing it. And so if you imagine in the top, like the best you are at doing something and how much you enjoy it, that's your superpowers. And for a coach, it's probably actually coaching clients, because like shock horror, we actually really like doing that. And then probably showing up online because you're interesting, you're interested, and that translates really well to being passionate online and showing up and building an audience there. The stuff in the middle is when you're sort of good at it, but you're not great at it. And when you sort of enjoy doing it, but you don't love it. And I call this just the danger zone. And this will be stuff like making lead magnets, maybe writing, maybe making carousels, the stuff where it's like, you think it's going to take 10 minutes and then it takes an hour. And then you're nodding because you've been there. And then all of a sudden your whole day is gone and you've got like 2 Instagram posts to show for it. And it's like, what am I doing? That's the danger zone stuff that is so perfect for AI-ifying. And then in the bottom left-hand corner of this superpower matrix is the stuff where you're actually not really that good at it and you don't really enjoy it, but it has to be done. So admin, accounts, the stuff that your business couldn't really run without. And if you didn't have that stuff in place, you would just be some kind of hot mess and it wouldn't really be sustainable. You wouldn't build anything impressive. And that's the stuff where it's either automate it or delegate it, but like somehow do it and definitely don't do it yourself. So if you imagine we've got these like 3 buckets, what I then teach people how to do is attack the danger zone tasks. And the idea is that you get all of those looked after in some way by AI. Maybe not AI is doing the whole thing, but it's at least doing part of it so that you can just focus on your superpowers. And then when you're just focusing on your superpowers, you free up all this time to train, to hang out, to like actually enjoy your life. So that's the basis for thinking about how to use AI.
With what you said there, one of the things, I'm a visionary, creative person, like coming up with ideas. I like building businesses, but I don't particularly like running them or, for example, managing teams. I know a lot of people watching this also feel the same way. They like building shit. They like doing all the creative stuff. Like I said before, I love marketing. Is there a way you can use AI to automate and run your teams?
Yes, for sure. So my company now is one called Coachvox, and we make AI versions of people, but and mainly coaches, like business coaches, marketing coaches, life coaches. And the goal for every single one of our customers is that they could run a business beyond their wildest dreams with them, their VA, and their AI. So I wouldn't say your AI can do everything. I wouldn't say AI can do everything, but it could do a lot. And then you could still have that human intervention that you could train a human to do, and that could be your VA. So it's so much more is possible with so many fewer people. But give me an example of something that you'd love to be able to do like that.
Looking through our looking for like red light, if you could have AI read through the data of, say, for example, your sales calls are getting booked, show rates, close rates, it would then know how to message and manage your team correctly to try and optimize what the problem is.
Yeah. So what I tend to find is that, you know how if a client came to you in a kind of fitness sense and they were really overweight and they had a really terrible blood pressure and they they didn't move at all. I feel like so many people approach AI right at the top, and it's almost like going to that client and telling them to eat kale and have activated charcoal and focusing on like the top like 0.something%, where really you just want to tell them to move better, eat better, sleep more and stress less, and that's it. So if I was applying the same go back to basics principles to someone using AI, I would say to a coach, literally just record your calls, record everything that you say, because everything you need is probably already in there. And the transcripts, as we were just even talking about before we started recording, the transcripts probably contain everything you would need to show up online forever, because you're already saying the stuff. And I kind of think this is the magic stuff, because you've already got it inside you. You're already saying the stuff that you know your clients want to hear that makes a difference. It's just about how to turn that into content and turn that into stuff that scales you beyond your time. So from a really like basic workflow is I would record your calls with something like Otter AI or some kind of program that you already use. It's probably already in there.
Can you even just use like Zoom transcripts?
Zoom transcripts, yeah. And then use some kind of agentic software like Make, like Zapier. There's a lot of them. And then get that to take your transcript and then put the prompt with the transcript into something like Claude and get that to create content in the format of wherever you already show up. Like I wouldn't start somewhere fresh here. I would.
Great idea already from this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would go somewhere that you already show up. And so imagine that you're a coach who shows up on LinkedIn and you are pretty good at LinkedIn. You know the format of the ideal post. You know how to grow your profile on there. Take your best performing LinkedIn posts and get the AI to deconstruct them. So the format of a really great LinkedIn post for you might be, okay, we need a hook that fits this certain set of parameters. We need a rehook that fits this certain set of parameters. We need the value, the main 80% of the text to have these certain points in it. Maybe we need a line that's like a really strong belief, and then we need a question. So you've got your format of the perfect post. So now you're going to tell the AI to put all this new information from your transcript into that new format. And you might find that every single coaching call gives you 10 new LinkedIn posts just because you've taught the AI how to deal with that information in your proven format. And then the idea is that you show up for an hour, you coach your client, you chat to them, and then that's 10 LinkedIn posts straight away so that you don't have to sit there being your own marketing assistant.
Is there a way you could then, say, for example, take those posts and automate those with AI being posted, or does that still have to be manual? Like there isn't like an API integration, or there's like a wall up with a lot of these platforms?
A lot of the platforms do have a wall up, and we've hit that a couple of times with Coachvox, because there's APIs, there's different things that change, but at some point along that journey, you're going to want a human to be in there because you want them to check the post. You don't just want to share out like rubbish. You want to look at it. You want to make sure that you're proud of it, essentially, because this is another thing where I feel like people use it wrong. They just share terrible stuff that they would never in a million years want to post normally, and they let quality drop in favor of quantity, but you just don't need to do that. So it would be up to you to decide where you want the human to be. And if it's, I want the human to go through the transcript first because I want them to take out any identifying information, I want them to take out like specific stuff, that could be a human intervention stage. Then you could have it that you want the human to actually look at the post and run a human checklist. So does it sound like I'm writing to one person? Does it sound like, does it match the existing posts I would have said? Everything like that. But then potentially you want the human to actually post it, or you want the human to find the image, or you want the human to run that final check. That would be up to you. So yeah, you could, if you wanted to, you could automate everything. But I feel like all of the coaches I work with, their reputation matters more than that. It would be worth the kind of 2 minutes checking it, or teaching their VA how to check it.
So an idea I came up with whilst having this conversation that will be relevant for everyone listening to this. Could you automate taking all of your sales calls that automatically and coaching calls that automatically get pulled into a knowledge database, and maybe that then gets pulled into Claude.ai, and that spits out once a week 30 Instagram reels that you can film in fully scripted format based upon a template of a previous script you've used?
The short answer to nearly every question is yes, it's possible, or if it's not possible now, it will be in the future. The part of that process that would fall down is in the prompting. And the back to basics way of looking at AI is just learn how to prompt, like learn how to talk to the LLMs to get them to come out with the text. Because I pretty much teach and write about prompts, and there's so many wrong ways of doing it. And often what people do is they type in a prompt that's not that good. They think it's good, but it's not that good because there's so much you can do with it. And then they get something terrible out, and then they go, oh, AI doesn't work, or oh, the LLMs are rubbish, and then they give up. But I would spend more time creating the machine. It's almost like every hour you spend creating the machine will be infinitely valuable because it can run forever on this higher level of output.
And if you talk about building the machine, what specifically does that mean? Is that in terms of the project spaces, maybe within ChatGPT and Claude, building those out with the right prompts and having separate projects for the right tasks? It almost like works cohesively.
Yeah, exactly that. Setting it all up. So firstly, if you're talking about something like a Claude project, so something that can take input and it can reformat it in a certain way to create, say, Instagram reel scripts or something like that. Firstly, it's the Claude project in itself. Then it's all the documents that's within that. Then it's the prompt that you use to get Claude to talk to all the documents to create the new stuff. Then it's the format that the input goes in. Then it's the human checking. Then it's the actual process in itself. So that might take you a long time to set up. But once that's done, you've got this system that could just run forever. And to the intricacies of the Claude project could be, like, mine are crazy. Mine are like ridiculous when you look at them.
In the length of detail of what you put into them.
Yeah. So there's one, so I have one Claude project that takes my articles on Forbes. So I'm a senior contributor for Forbes. So I write about ChatGPT prompts and AI for entrepreneurs, that kind of stuff. And it takes my articles on Forbes that have got over a certain number of hits, and it reworks them into a LinkedIn carousel and a LinkedIn post. But inside that Claude project, there is a ban list of the words and phrases you should never use because they're too indicative of ChatGPT generated content or AI generated content. Then it's got, this is what a good post looks like. This is what a good carousel looks like. And there's probably 20 examples of those. Then it's got, this is the exact format of a carousel and what each bit should look like. And this is the exact format of a post and what each bit should look like. Then it's got a description of my ideal customer. So who is the person that this post is for? Then it's got the pains of my ideal customer. So what are the pains that they're running away from that my content needs to alleviate or help them with? Then it's got what are all the knowledge gaps of my ideal customer. Like, there's so much information that you can put in there. And then it's got their personality and how they're influenced. So the more information you can, I just tapped the mic for it. So the more information you can give to your Claude project, the more that you could say, reference all this stuff when you're creating this carousel.
So to give that more detail and actual precise data, could you also, you mentioned like pain points of prospects. Could you upload, for example, here's 50 sales call transcripts. Here's all the pain points. These are our perfect ICA of clientele, and like literally just dump the data of all this stuff into it. So it actually has the actual facts of what people are saying.
So I would use the data to get the information out of it.
And then put it into the project.
The project. Like, I would almost clean it first.
Yeah.
Like when in our system, so when someone creates the AI version of them with Coachvox, they could put all their stuff in, but we're like, don't leave the AI to do the job. Like, use AI to get the information out and then train it with that. It's almost like you want to, if you had a salesperson starting at your work, you wouldn't go, oh, here's all the stuff, like, have that. Yeah. You would be like, this is the exact process and this is what we want you to look at first. And this is the information in its highest quality form so that you have the best chance of succeeding. I would see Claude, ChatGPT, anything like that as being this really enthusiastic intern who's showing up at work. They're ready to do their best job and you want to give them the best information to allow them to succeed in the best possible way.
With the project spaces, is there certain projects you would recommend, like we work specifically mainly with fitness coaches, that coaches use? Like what would be some different examples?
You could create a project that writes your blog post for you. You could create a project that writes your reels for you. Start a different project for every single thing you're doing, and start with the stuff that you do the most. Start with the stuff that's going to free the most time from your plate. And you can only decide that yourself from looking at your calendar and what takes the most time. But overall, you could have one for everything that you do, which then means that you can take all your best content, strongest beliefs, and honestly scale yourself to infinity. But that's actually another point as well. So ChatGPT was trained on 300 billion words all over the internet. So what that's meant is that all the billions of words are all out there. And so when you ask it a question, it's trying to predict the best answer to that question, but it's using all its references. And so because it's trained on so much data, all the strong opinions are kind of cancelling each other out. So when you're using AI like ChatGPT to pull information out of it, it's just giving you the generic responses. So what you put in needs to be as strong as possible. So when you're turning your content into new content, be so fundamental about your beliefs. So it's not like, so you imagine if you said to ChatGPT, give me 10 rules for a happy marriage, it would give you such generic stuff. But if you said, give me Charlie's 10 rules for a happy marriage, it would be like, never do this, always do this, you shouldn't do that. And it would be very like strong. So everything that you put in should be the strongest version of you possible, the most opinionated, abrasive, ridiculously like strong opinion version possible, so that what comes out reflects that. Because otherwise all of your content will just get watered down until it's so generic, vanilla, yeah, if you didn't do it properly. So if you imagine you've got a transcript, or you've got a YouTube video, you've got something else that you want to turn into reels, don't just say turn this into a reel. Say pull out the most opinionated, pull out the strongest things, pull out the most surprising things, pull out, like, be really extreme with it, so that what comes out the other end is extreme too.
So what I found is using like prompts like make this direct, aggressive, polarizing, really helps. And even like yesterday, where I was, and this is for me where this is so easy from a marketing perspective, like we 3x our opt-in rate to one of our funnels yesterday for me, just like getting ideas for headlines, sub-headlines, and then putting them into the funnels. And I was literally just playing around with AI and just testing, like, okay, this is what our ad copy is. What should the headlines be? What should the sub-headline be? And just keep filtering through until I'm like, that one I like, that one like really like polarizes me, almost like pulls me through the screen.
Yeah.
Is there, on that note, something I was thinking about, we were talking, is you can export your data from your Facebook ads and then upload them into ChatGPT and then also get feedback probably. I've never done that.
Yeah. And ask it questions about the data and then verify it, because it just makes stuff up. Oh, my friend, a friend with a really big YouTube channel, she uploaded a bunch of information to ChatGPT, and she wanted to pull out testimonials that she could use on her landing pages. And she said, tell me the testimonials that showed the biggest transformation from all of my customers. And the ones that came out, she was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that people said this. And they almost brought her to tears with how good they were. And then she looked through the actual data, and ChatGPT had completely made them up. But the thing is, she made it apologize. I was like, you can't make ChatGPT apologize. Like, when the robots take over, they are going to kill you first. That is how this will work. But yeah, I would check all of the data. But yeah, you could for sure do that. But it's what you put in. So it's what you have to put in is the reason that you want this information, what you're going to use it for, and specifically what it should look for. So ask for specific data around the transformation that like the before and after of a certain result with Facebook ads, or the most specific questions will give you better results, because otherwise it will just analyze it generally and it will miss the nuance of something.
What's the worst thing anyone can do from a prompting standpoint with AI that anyone listening to this can do?
Be vague, get impatient, assume the problem is them and not you. It's like, it goes back to the intern thing. If a team member came to you with their piece of work and they they'd messed it up for some reason. They completely missed the brief. They hadn't got it right. You wouldn't just hit them on the head and shout regenerate. You'd say, no, I am the problem. I have given you the wrong instructions and I have not set you up for success. So do that. Assume that you are the problem. Assume that whatever you've put in, this AI is, they're smart, they're eager, they're ready to learn, they want to do well, and you've messed up and not them.
So I would reframe that because it reminds me of a different analogy of like, people will moan about their team, but then you hired and train them. So people will moan about AI, but you put the prompt in and press the enter button.
For sure. Yeah.
So with the product spaces, obviously we have those in Claude and ChatGPT. What should we use these platforms separately? And is there any other platforms you should be using if you're not?
I would master those two just because they're just the basics. The more you do with those, the more you start to get AI involved in the work you're already doing, the more that you will then be able to turn those processes that you're doing manually with LLMs and involve like agents and then take it to the next level. And I would kind of build from there. I feel like it would almost be the biohacking way of approaching fitness without starting from the bottom rung with AI.
And for people listening, what's an LLM and agentics?
Large language model, something like ChatGPT or Claude. And that is where there's all these words that it's trained on. And it's pretty much just trying to predict the next word to say, but they work in very clever ways and the technology is only going to get better. But that's where they generate things for you. But why it's so powerful for coaches with content is because you've already done the generating, you've already got the original content, you're just using these models to repurpose stuff. And that means that your strong beliefs can get turned into more strong beliefs in a different format. You're not relying on the LLM itself to create you stuff from scratch. That's the advantage, I think. That's the advantage of putting in all the work so far in all these years of creating content. The agent side is where something like a program is doing the thing for you. It's almost like the difference between just repurposing something or turning something into a different format or coming out with some text and would you like me to run this process for you, and you saying yes. So the absolute ultimate goal is that you're there showing up to your coaching session, talking, engaging, being fully present, and then when you get off, you've got a week's worth of LinkedIn posts, reels, everything already created because the agent and the LLM have talked together and done it. That's the dream. But there are like 10 different stages before then to master before getting to that dream.
This is, in my opinion, where it's like people who aren't using this, like turn up to a knife fight with like a nuclear weapon almost, because you have so much leverage and ability to get stuff done so quickly. And even from like a content creation perspective, in January, we filmed probably nearly 3 months worth of content in like 10 days, 2 weeks, because I was away in the US for a while. And I think people are sleeping on this now more than ever before. And I think they're going to regret 2-3 years time they haven't got all in on this, when you have like an arbitrage of being early and of being an early adopter of this.
Yeah, for sure. This is so similar to when I set up a social media agency in 2011. I was convincing people to get involved. I was like, please, come on, you need to be on this. Time is now. And those that did, like we set up the Twitter accounts for Deliveroo and they got involved in 2011 and now they're Deliveroo and everyone knows who they are. But all the different companies who did exactly the same thing but didn't get involved in that at the time, they're probably nowhere now. And I think it's the same. And we still are early. Even though AI has been around for a very, very long time, it feels like it's only been super accessible to regular business owners on this kind of level in the last couple of years. But there are still people thinking it's all going to blow over and go away. And I just don't think it is.
Why do you think some people are reluctant to do this? So, for example, I remember I used to work for a big corporate property business in the UK when I was an estate agent. I left there 25th of February 2019, so it wasn't that long ago. And I remember like banging the drum to them on social media about you need to do X, Y, Z. And they were like, basically, fuck off, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I am fucking off. And I went off and did my own thing. And then did really well doing that. Yeah, see ya. And I think that's the reality. I think a lot of people in these corporate positions are so like pigeonholed in their mindset that they can't see the wood through the trees.
Most people don't want to change until the pain of not changing becomes so big. They're just stuck in that comfy middle, not really wanting to do it. There's a book and a YouTube video called Who Moved My Cheese? and it's these mice, and they're in the video. The book's a lot more profound, and it's got lots of case studies, but the YouTube video is like 6 minutes long, and it's these mice going around a maze, and it's an analogy for marketing or an analogy for change. And they've got all this pile of cheese, and they're like, yes, my cheese is there, and then it moves, and they're going around the maze looking for the cheese, and they keep being like, oh, who moved my cheese, and they have to keep moving and keep looking for it. And I think that so many business owners want to find this one channel that works really well, and then they just want to leave it so that runs while they do other stuff, and they know that all their leads are coming through, all their work's been done, and that's this holy grail situation that they've just got as their dream. And that is never the case. It's not with marketing, it's not with business. Your cheese is always going to move. Someone's always going to move your cheese. You just have to not try and wish for this moment where your cheese stays still and you've got everything. You just have to be better at continually looking for it.
And I also think the people who want to keep their cheese in one place are the people who are playing a very risky game, because someone's going to come and steal it at some point, or the cheese will go off and that strategy won't work anymore. Because one of the things I see, particularly in the fitness industry, is there are people who are teaching things they've never done, and therefore they're teaching things, say, from a marketing standpoint, that worked in 2020. We are now in 2025. We didn't even have Reels back then.
Yeah.
We didn't have Reels, you have AI, you have all this crazy shit that was never around. And it's a different game.
Yeah. So two things that popped into my head. And one is that you have a choice with how you use AI. One is that you can use it to do more in the same amount of time. So work exactly the same amount of hours, but just make more impact. And that's totally possible. You could be like a world famous coaching superstar from not even working any harder because you've now got robots working with you. Or you can put AI to work in your business, and your whole goal could just be to work less, to make the same amount of money, to make the same amount of impact, then just work half the time. But I feel like the answer is in just choosing one of those things and not being confused about which one you're trying to do. Like, just pick. Are you playing the performance game, or are you playing the lifestyle game? Because like, I guess you and me are kind of like playing the freaking performance game, but also we don't want to compromise our lifestyle, but that's perfect because you just work exactly the same amount of time and you try and do more. Whereas I can imagine some of the coaches that we have on Coachvox, they're maybe a bit later in their career. They just want to do the same work. They want to make the same amount of money. They don't want to get overtaken by anyone using AI, but they quite like the idea of scaling back a bit and not having to do so much of the admin marketing work themselves.
It's interesting you say that, because I've said this a lot to our clients, is that the reality with, say, from my opinion, content creation, I think you've 10x durability in terms of how quickly you can create content versus previously, probably even more so. For me, like, I don't edit it, so it's literally like script and film. So it's like, cool, like relatively easy, right? So some people will just make the same amount of content. I'm like, well, fuck that. I want to make 10 times as much then.
Yeah.
And then we'll just swamp everything. And even one of the recent things I was laughing, I think we were talking about creativity and writing things earlier on. We now split test much more heavily in Facebook ads with image graphics, and then we split test the copy a lot more. Why? Because before I couldn't be asked to have to write the copy out of 4 different ad variations to try it. Now I literally just press, give me 4 variations of this, press enter. I have 4 variations, upload to Facebook ads, done. Which would have probably taken me an hour beforehand, maybe.
Yeah. And so much of it is just in volume of quality output. If I think of the people I know who were playing this game, I don't know what game it is, the personal brand, the online, I don't know, this game. The people who were playing it 5 years ago, the ones who were playing it big time now, are the ones where they just produced more and they learned and they did more and more from that. And then they carried on making higher quality stuff that spoke to their audience, and their audience just grew. And I think a lot about something I can't remember where it came from, but it's called the law of least effort. The idea that you find what feels effortless to you, and then you just outproduce everyone else. And for some, my law of least effort is for sure writing. And so if I can just get everyone else to do everything else so that I can just sit there with a laptop and just write and write and write, I can do so much of it because you just get into flow doing it. But someone else's law of least effort might be just podcasting or being on stage or something else. So when you find yours, that's the thing that can sit at the center of your entire strategy. And then if you put AI with that at the same time, your outproducing does become 10x. It's like, we're not playing the 2014 game anymore. We're playing like this crazy game on a new level, but only if you learn it first.
If someone was listening to this and they're like, I want to turbocharge my business with AI, say from a marketing and sales perspective, what is the first thing you would focus on, or what would your advice be to them?
Superpower matrix. Work out what you actually want to do, how you actually want to spend your time. It all comes back to lifestyle design and designing your business around your life, not the other way around. So I would honestly plan out your dream life, plan out your dream business within that, plan out your dream day to day within that. I would fully just start with you and the life you want to live. And then I would write the list of the stuff that you just don't want to do, and then start one by one with how you give that to either a VA or AI. And then learn. And I would learn how to prompt, because I think that's the lowest rung. That's the easiest thing to learn. But all the tools you will ever use are all based on prompting. So everything that's turning your transcripts into reels or turning anything into something else, behind the scenes of that tool is just a prompt. So if you know how it works, you can get the most out of every tool, and you won't start to fall into the pitfall that so many people fall into, which is just, oh, it doesn't work, therefore it doesn't work for me, therefore I'm just going to give up. Because they're the people that also said that social media didn't work for them in 2012, and they're not anywhere now.
It's also the same people who say Facebook ads don't work, but Facebook is a $1 trillion company. So clearly it works, which is why people spend so much money on it.
I think it's because no one wants to think like they are the problem, but there's such freedom in saying, no, I'm the problem and I can figure this out.
But for me, that's the game. And as I said to you, I redesigned this funnel yesterday, and I looked at all the numbers. I'm like, well, that's terrible, because the opt-in rate was like 9%. So I'm like, okay, we're spending, say, £1,000 a day on Facebook ads, so page is doing 9%. It's like, I can definitely improve this. I then get it to 30%. It's equivalent of us spending 3 times as much, because I spent 3 hours just optimizing a funnel. And I think this is where people look at things backwards, and in their business, they're not actually fixing the point of constraint. And I've done this a lot of the time, where like, I want to make more ads, I want to make more marketing stuff, but I don't necessarily want to look at the numbers and deal with the problem sometimes. But the way, probably with AI as well, you can probably input all the data through, say, for example, your funnel, from the ad to the funnel, close rate, show rate. What's the problem? What do I need to focus on? And it'll be able to give you that answer.
I feel like something that really holds people back, and it's for sure held me back before, is seeing metrics, business metrics, social media metrics, and not being able to separate from them, and thinking, oh, my post only got 20 likes. That means I'm a bad person, or that means I'm not enough, or that means I'm like not resonating, or something other than it's just metrics. It's just data. You got the hook wrong. That's it. Get over it. And I feel like getting over that is the thing that means that you can show up and you can see things so objectively. Like when you just said like, oh, that didn't work. It's like, you're not saying I'm terrible, I'm stupid because I didn't make it work. You're just like, no, this is the thing. This is the thing that we can separate, put there in the middle of the table and study to then make better. That's the mindset shift I feel like needs to happen first before people can properly make use of all this.
And for me, I think the number one reason that I see, probably mainly more men as well, that they aren't successful with their businesses is pride. They're not willing to get a second opinion or look at X, Y, Z because they think they're fucking everything. And that for me is like, I'm very open-minded to other people's opinions. I ask people questions all the time because people will see things from a different point of view. And I think even, for example, I've asked advice from someone who I don't probably align with in a lot of respects from what he does in social media. And we've got a bit of an interesting relationship. I think we end up becoming friends. He is going to give me some advice on some of our stuff because the way he polarizes content, the way he looks at things is very different than the way I would look at it. But vice versa, I have a very different skill set where I can also contribute to him.
I just finished doing a 30-day challenge of posting every day on YouTube. And the whole goal was just get over perfectionism, because I have so many friends who are YouTubers and they're all really good YouTubers and they have production like absolutely nailed. Everything looks amazing. They've got awesome studios. And I was seeing that and comparing it with my day, nothing on YouTube and just not getting started. So I did 30 days of one video a day just to get scrappy, get over perfectionism and just post without caring about perfect makeup, perfect hair, perfect anything other than perfect microphone, because it turns out that actually really does matter. But I think the more you can move past the needing to be perfect, the more you can just learn loads faster, and then it does stop any pride. And I had lots of the people I have around me are so focused on self-development and improving all the time, which is really great. But I had loads of messages being like, hey, do you want me to tell you how they could be better? And I'm like, no, I know they could be better. There is so much wrong with these videos. There's almost no point you wasting your critique on this now, because the goal of this 30 days is just to get scrappy and get over the fear of posting and the kind of perfectionism, so that I can just see. But it's actually really hard to stay scrappy.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite sayings is volume negates luck. And like, for me, a lot of what I've done, it's been like brute force violence to then just like figure things out. If I just do enough of something, I will no longer be shit anymore because I've done it so many times.
Do you know where you got that mindset from?
Massive chip on my shoulder and huge insecurity. I don't know, probably.
Yeah, okay, nice. So you just channeled it into something really good. Yeah.
What makes you ask?
Because I think so many people have it, but they don't have the self-awareness to realize that they have it. And then they don't have the ability to channel it into action. They just use it to create excuses again and again.
So something I think about a lot of maybe why I have it is I understood the input and output equation from as an estate agent. So I understood that I became manager of a branch at maybe like 23 that was doing £1 million a year, which was a lot for someone very young. And essentially I cheated the system because I understood very quickly, okay, if I come into the office before anyone else, I can take all the best leads. If I also pick up the phone before everyone else, I get all the best leads. Therefore, I control lead flow. I am the king. I win and become best salesperson. And then become manager. So it's like, that's how I win the game, is brute force violence, just doing that as much as possible.
Yeah.
Book as many viewings as possible. And that's probably also why I like marketing. Like, well, if I just get as many leads as possible and as many people through this funnel, as much traffic as possible, some of it's going to close and some of it's going to convert. Like, to a certain degree, that will work, and then it gets a bit messy. But I think that's probably for me like a pattern recognition I've learned from earlier on in my life.
Yeah. I had something really similar. I used to work in hospitality. I was a waitress for like many years at different restaurants. And it was so similar to your getting in the office before and answering the phone. It was like, the more tables I have, the more people I see, the more tips I eventually get, because your hourly rate is so low that you need to do the tips game. And it was, the more friendly I am, the more I get to know people, the more tips I get. And also it was at the moment that the customer had the credit card machine, they get asked, would you like to add a tip? Yes or no? And so I learned that the more questions I asked them where the answer was yes, did you have a nice meal? Are you going anywhere else after this? They always were. Like those kind of questions. The more questions I asked them where the answer was yes, the more likely they were to click yes and then leave a tip.
So NLP.
Yeah, so much. Yeah. But then it's the input output thing. It's like I can see that the more I show up and do good stuff, the more tips I get. And then you keep going. And then it's kind of addictive.
So the underlying skill of all of that is actually pattern recognition, because your brain has realized the pattern. If this person says yes, they say yes, then they'll then say yes to give me the tip. And I think that's actually probably the big thing that most people don't realize. I actually even say why I've gone down the AI rabbit hole and like using it so much is positive reinforcement. If I put in a good prompt and it gives me a sick reel really, really quickly, I was like, well, that saved me a load of time. It's then getting me more clients and making us more money and more views. And I think that is something people need to understand, is how to get like positive reinforcement for the things they want to do.
We're just all on a big dopamine train, aren't we? Just trying to find the next cool hit. And now it's AI.
100%. I think that's also maybe something that needs to be controlled to some degree. And if you talk about dopamine hits and you also talk about social media, how do you think AI content creation, in terms of like, here's an AI video of me, this isn't even real, this whole podcast might not even be real, this is fake. Like, how do you think that is going to impact social media from your perspective? Because I have my own views.
There's a lot of split opinions about this. The main platform I show up on is LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is crazy with AI content right now. And it's also crazy with AI comments right now. I ultimately think people will not care if it's AI generated. They will care if it's good. And if it's bad and it's AI generated, you lose your reputation, you lose all the hard work you've put in so far, because you're just putting something out that really treats your audience like they're stupid, which you obviously never want to do. But if you're using AI to put your strong opinions in, to put your strong beliefs in that people relate to, and the tools that you're using and the combination that you're using them just means that you can be everywhere, then amazing. But I feel like the reason that the final human check is needed is because that's your name. It's like, it's your name there above that piece of content. Do you want people seeing that and associating that with you? That's the final check that always needs to happen. So I think some of the podcasts that I've listened to before, if it's an AI generated podcast, but it's also good because the creator of the original work has put their quality and their stamp of approval on the final stuff, then fine, I'll listen to it. But the moment it's, oh, they've cut corners here, then I won't. And if you put that across the whole world and imagine that everyone thought about it like that, it means that you're going to just have to keep quality high for it to work for your brand.
So in my opinion, I don't know how far off we are from this, but we've had, I don't know if you know John Lee, so he's big into the AI space. He had him on the podcast, he's a good friend of mine. He goes down a lot of rabbit holes in terms of AI and different stuff you could do. And he's a big fan of like, create 15 AI Instagram accounts of you and make all fake content. I'm like, yeah, but the content looks terrible and it's not great. And yeah, it might get like accumulative views, but this is just kind of a bit of a waste of time in terms of my opinion. Do you think that the quality of AI and video content creation will increase dramatically in the next year or two to the point where even this podcast you might even have to film in person?
AI generated content will get so out of control. There'll be so much of it that people will be craving realness.
This is where I was going to go.
I could go on a bit of a rant about this.
So, in my opinion, what's going to happen, and not to cut you off, sorry, is that people are going to see how fake all this bullshit is.
Yeah.
And it's going to push them the exact opposite way.
Yeah.
To like super authentic, slightly shitty content that's really, really raw, predominantly on platforms like YouTube where it's a slightly longer video because people will crave human connection rather than perfect Charlie with scripted reel, reading line after line that's super quick and like clickbait.
Yeah. People don't want perfect Charlie. They want like stumbling Charlie. They want like the one that pauses to think because that's what humans do. Because I actually shared something about this on LinkedIn the other day. I got some newsletter through that was, I use these 5 different AI apps to make this video of me, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, who cares? No one cares. It looks terrible. You wouldn't watch it. So don't treat your audience like they're stupid, that they're not stupid. If you wouldn't watch it, they won't watch it. They're not like less than you. They're just as smart as you. So just don't do it. You just don't want your name above it. So I think the more real, the better. The more you can get your realness to infinity by using the tools well, like I'm all for that. But the moment you start to compromise who you are and you compromise quality, I stay well away from that.
What's your opinion in terms of converting all of your content, say all of my content into Spanish and like pushing out Spanish, Charlie, Carlos?
I don't think you'll need to do it yourself. I think the platforms will just do it for you.
Or natively convert it for you.
Yeah.
If I press the button and you're now Spanish, off you go.
So the AI coaches that we make, if someone talks to Jodie AI in Spanish, Jodie AI will talk back in Spanish, but I haven't trained it in Spanish. Like me doing that exercise, I feel like would be a massive waste of my time because if someone is consuming the internet in Spanish, it's being delivered back to them in Spanish because there are AI companies and tech companies bigger than mine dealing with that problem. So I don't think we need to focus on it.
One thing, I had a conversation with a guy at ClickFunnels in Las Vegas, like a big marketing event. And he tried to sell me into it, was using outbound phone dialers that were AI. And he actually got his phone out there and I was like asking it questions. It was actually pretty good and pretty impressive. We use outbound phone dialers in our own business quite a lot. How far off do you think that is from being something that's pretty nailed in? Because it was pretty impressive.
It just all depends if it's good. If it's good to the quality that you would expect, it has to hit your standards. And if it doesn't hit your standards and it's got your name on it, then I probably wouldn't use it until it's better because the technology is only going to get better.
And this is where, in my opinion, the way I do things in business is I will wait for proofs of concept for like, oh, my friend Frank did this. It is now working really well. Like, awesome. Like, I will do it too. And I remember him saying to me maybe like 18 months ago, there was something called, it's ironically called Charlie.ai. It was like a DM setter AI based. And he spent loads of money and tried to build this thing out. And it was, nah. And like we have AI DM setters as well. Does it work? Yes. Are human beings way, way better? Like 5 times better? Yes. So is it at the level where I would swap one for the other? No.
When our coaches are making their AIs in our platform, we will always say, make it first, train it, get it to where you're happy with it, and then run an alpha test. Share it with 10, 15 people who you trust, get them to critique it, get them to try and break it, get their commentary, and then go again and make it better. And so that's the bit that stops them sending something out there that they're ultimately not yet happy with. So that kind of stress test I would check first. So if anyone was thinking about using a outbound call something, try it out on like 5 of your prospects first and get them and say to them, hey, I'm trying this thing out. What do you think? Tell me your honest opinion. Because I think the wrong way to do it is just pick up a tool, think, oh, this sounds cool, this will save me loads of time, and then send out rubbish that costs your reputation because you haven't put that step in of, you're like, mate, is this good? Because that's the realness question, I think, and your true friends will tell you if it's good.
Do you think people need to be concerned about being replaced by AI?
The bad people, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Like if someone's turning up to their job, not really putting everything in, just kind of fanning around, being on their phone, not really giving it everything, expecting the world to come to them, they are exactly the people who are going to get replaced by AI. But the people who show up, I'm just thinking of my agency here and the team members we had, like, so the person who, she works for my company now actually, and she was my best ever team member at my agency, and I loved working with her so much. If we'd have been running the agency at this time, she would have had a field day because she'd have been using all the tools. She'd have been like, hey, here's how I can take my personal output and I can 10x it using these tools. She herself would have replaced 3 other team members just from using that stuff. So it's going to be polarizing. It's going to be, you can't hide anywhere. But I kind of love that. I love things that split the doers from the non-doers.
And that's where my opinion is going to make certain people almost like superhuman.
Yeah.
Because it's your ability to do more quicker, be more effective, and get to the end result. And I think Dan Priestley explained it to me like this, that instead of, say, for example, having a marketing team of 100, you'd have a marketing team of 2 people with fucking weapons who are really, really smart, really, really outside the box thinking, but are great to put the right prompts and information in the system, and they will outperform the 100.
Yep. I feel kind of superhuman. I feel like me and my robots and my VA can kind of take over the world, but it's partly because if you know who you are and the message you've got to share, you're now infinitely able to scale. Whereas before that really would have been capped by my time would have been capped, and I would have had to compromise training or traveling, and I just wasn't prepared to do that.
So let's go down that rabbit hole. If you're someone who's listening to this and you're not really sure who you are or what you want to do, how would you use AI at this point?
I wouldn't use AI yet.
Okay.
I would first decide who you are and what you want to do.
Could you use AI to try and prompt you to guide you through that process?
Yeah, okay. So I would take something that represents a high volume of you talking, even generally, to a client or in a podcast or like a client call, and I would put it into ChatGPT or Claude, and I would say, take this transcript and predict what you think are my 10 strongest beliefs. And I would get your beliefs to come out in a list, and I would share that online somewhere. So what I did this about a year ago. So I put my rules for life, and I shared my 10 strongest beliefs. And then I said, what would you add? And so my dream customers are all going, yes to number 6, yes to number 7, I'd add this, don't agree with that one. And so you kind of get to realize what your principles are, but also the ones that align with the people who you want to serve, which are the most important ones. And then I would use that list of 10 beliefs as what you create everything from. So I've got my 5 rules for life on my own website. And one of them is extreme people get extreme results. One of is like go where the money is, win the mental game, use your ace cards, that kind of stuff. So every single thing that I create is an expansion of one of those beliefs. But because they're beliefs that my dream customer also believes, it means we're totally aligned. And it means they see me as someone who gets them. And then it means that they sign up, they become customers, they feel like they know me really well because we're aligned on that fundamental level.
And then are you uploading all those beliefs into, say, AI as originally like, here is my belief system as a human being of who I am? Base everything you do off of this.
In my Claude project is a list of my beliefs, and it will say everything that you create, make sure it's aligned with these beliefs, at least one of them. Because I believe
is that like one project that links to all of them, or is it individually it has to be in all of them?
It's a individual Word document that's uploaded to every single one. Beliefs, ethos, who you are, because it's got me and my kind of vibe, and then it's got the vibe of my target audience. So then it knows to create content that is in the intersection. There's no point sharing anything online that your target audience doesn't believe in or doesn't meet them where they're at. But it all starts with beliefs. I think beliefs is the most fundamental level of all of this.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why most people struggle in life in general, because their belief system is off. It's like your navigation system for life doesn't have a direction, so they're just drifting and they don't know who they are, what they want to do, or why.
It's the most fun subject. I think whenever I watch any person talking about anything or listen to anyone explaining any kind of business concept, I'm not really trying to listen for the how. I'm just trying to listen for their beliefs. I'm trying to listen to what do they believe to be true that has then created their success or their downfall, essentially. When I decided to sell my social media agency, I started meeting up with people who had either sold their agency in the past or had bought agencies in the past. And so I just booked calls with them just to ask them about it. And I wasn't looking for the step-by-step process. I was looking for the things that they believed to be true. And so the first lady I spoke to, she ran a big agency. She'd bought agencies before overseas. And she said to me in the first 5 minutes, she said, "Oh, it's easy to sell your agency if you're intentional enough." So then I'm like, sweet, it's easy to sell your agency if you're intentional enough. And then that was a belief that I then carried through. And the how didn't really matter because she introduced me somewhat to someone who introduced me to someone else who did end up making it happen. But if I'd have followed her exact blueprint, it probably wouldn't have worked for me because we're different at different stages, doing different stuff. But all you need is the belief that someone else has had, and then you can make anything happen.
And that's why I'm such a big believer in terms of having like live events, and when you physically spend time around other people who are phenomenally successful, you then become phenomenally successful by default. And I think that is one of the things AI will never be able to replace. Is I meet Jodie, she's really, really successful, then I think I could be really, really successful, and it gives me that belief system inside that this thing can be done. And I think that is probably a big problem most people have, is they have a limiting belief in terms of, oh, the fitness market is saturated, like everyone's a trainer online. And it's like, that's actually a good sign because it shows there's money there, which is why people are coming into it.
Yeah.
If there weren't people coming into it, it's actually probably going to show us a declining market. Like, not many people are starting a newspaper business right now.
Yeah. I think calling someone out on their beliefs in a really funny way is kind of easy to do if you're kind of cute, because you can be like, oh, so you believe this? Like a friend constantly talks about money and like, oh, what's the price of this? And he believes that expensive equals bad, cheap equals good. And so I said back to him, oh, so you think that if something is expensive, it's bad? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, you've just said all this stuff, so that makes me believe that that's a belief of yours. And he's like, maybe it is. And I was like, but if you think about it, the most expensive hotel room is probably the best one. The most expensive train ticket, you have the most space. The most expensive restaurant is probably the best one as well. So like, why wouldn't you just believe that expensive equals good? And because he's got this belief that expensive means you're being ripped off. Expensive means you're not getting value. I was like, why do you need to get value? He's like, oh, I don't know. And it's like, you can kind of start unpacking someone's beliefs in something very fundamental about money. And then they start to realize that everything that they've built this business on, this life on, could just be changed in a single sentence. And that's powerful.
And I think that's where some people want to get the most bang for their buck, but then some people just want to get the most bang.
Yeah.
I actually saw a story that someone posted on Instagram this morning, and it's basically complaining about the price of a coffee and a croissant in Istanbul airport. I'm like, dude, you target like wealthy entrepreneurs to get in shape. I'm like, this is the most brokey mindset to put on social media.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, you should like be making a joke, not complaining about it, because that's pushing away your actual audience of what you want, but it also is a reflection in terms of your internal state, because life's a mirror, not a window. It's a reflection back at you of your scarcity mindset of that you spend an extra fucking 30 quid on a coffee.
I think it's like, I get to spend money on coffee. I get to pay my taxes. I get to pay bills. Great. Yeah, there was someone, because I'm full nomad. I live out of Airbnbs. And someone the other day was talking about Airbnbs in Cape Town, which is where I was just living for 3 months. And they said to me, how do you get Airbnbs to be like cheaper? And I was like, oh, I don't really think about how to get things cheaper. I just think about how to make more money. And he's like, oh my God. And it was like his brain exploded. And it's like, yeah, but I'd so much rather think of that. I think it's a really low energy thing to think about, the price of stuff and coupons. And I'd so much rather just not even think about that at all.
But I think that's a British mentality. If we reverse that, say, for example, the US market, which is why, in my opinion, the US market is still the best market in the world to try and sell to. Do you see a change in terms of adoption of AI across the globe, say from Europe, Asia, North America?
At Coachvox, about 60% of our customers are American. I would say our American customers are, in general, easier. They're more likely to just give something a go with less information. lots of our British customers who are awesome, they will research a lot before they get involved, almost like because they want to kind of make sure, or they want more friends to have tried it before they do. But not everyone, but maybe just in general.
I think British people are just afraid of trying something new and stepping outside the box, which is why the country's probably in the predicament is a little bit at the moment. I think it's going to be interesting to see how AI, maybe I also think, allows some people to escape maybe the system or the narrative they're in at the moment, because we touched on earlier in terms of how like it's easier than ever before, yet people still make excuses they can't do it. Which if you look at like our parents' generation, for them to start a business, they'd have to put everything into it, everything they own, get physical premises, location. Is now like you can just pick up your phone and start a business essentially.
I don't know anything about the UK anymore. I feel like because I haven't lived there for so long. The main thing I know is that Cadbury chocolate is the best chocolate in the whole world, and everywhere else in the world imports it. And the only place that you can find it really is Birmingham, UK. So that's mainly what I go back to get cream eggs and other like dairy milk.
You can get those here as well, to be fair.
Yeah, but they're not made here. If you look at the back, and it will say made under license, and that means not made in Birmingham, which doesn't count.
Fair enough.
If anyone would like to send me cream eggs from Birmingham, I will
Have
gladly
you been to the
receive
factory?
them. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you think with AI, for example, you look at like the fitness market, how maybe that is going to change things? So in my opinion, what I see happening is that influencers who sell cheap $5 a week and month programs are going to get annihilated, because the type of person who probably will buy that will just go on ChatGPT and try and get something for free. Whereas in my opinion, people want to pay premium price for an actual human being to hold them accountable to do the thing. So I think that market's going to continue to grow, but coaches can then just utilize these tools to give a better service, coach more clients, and actually scale.
If you think about the actual fitness, the coach or the kind of influencer at the center who's doing the selling and who has got the clients, I feel like the future of personal brands is at a really interesting time right now, because almost everyone is trying to build their personal brand. Like podcast studios are so busy, editors are busy, everyone's busy, because everyone, like the most boring person you know is trying to build their personal brand right now. It's like, it's not really sustainable. How can everyone do it? And so if you think about not even just fitness influencers, but everyone doing it, I feel like they'll have to go in one of three ways. And the first is niching right down. So you're not like a fitness coach who just deals generally with people. It's like, no, I look after women over 50 who are doing their first marathon, and it will be like niche as closely as possible, so that it's really obvious exactly who you're dealing with and they know who the person is to help them. So niching the first one. I feel like the second one is so unbelievably practicing what you preach, where it's not going to be enough if you are looking after women over 50 who are doing their first marathon. You're also going to have to yourself be a woman over 50 who's doing their first marathon, or you're going to at least have to have so much experience with that person, that type, that demographic, that you will be the person they come to. I think that's just going to be needed. We're not going to look for generic like coaches anymore. But then the third one of what the future of personal brands will need is almost kind of being a demigod. So it's, you know, if someone in business is teaching you how to get to turn your 7-figure business into an 8-figure business, but they have a dad bod, they look knackered, they've got greasy hair, they look just like a stereotypical businessman from the 70s, you're going to be like, but you've got there compromising your life. You've got there, maybe you don't walk your kids to school and actually families are really important to me, or you don't do this. It's going to be like, that's not enough. I don't want to have that benefit while compromising that. So I think more and more we're going to be scrutinizing everything about someone. It's like you have to have gone from 7 to 8 figures whilst also working less, while also walking your kids to school and not missing their sports day, while also doing this, this, and this, and this. And we're going to scrutinize people's lifestyles more. So the pressure on the future of the best coaches in the world is high, I think, because I think the bar is just going to get higher and higher because more people are trying to build their own brand.
And in my opinion, that's why people should try and focus on becoming like a category of one. And I really like saying demigod. And even to the point where, like I've got a lot of life changes coming up. I put in a prompt into ChatGPT of like, this is happening. How do I continue to structure my life to achieve all these things I want to do? gave me a full plan of what I need to do for the next 6 months, and I broke it up into like individual little plans out of it. And I think that is where the people with the right mentality will try and systematize, automate, and delegate everything so they can become the demigod.
The word demigod's in my head because of Moana. So I think Moana is my Disney princess, and obviously Maui, who's played by The Rock, is a demigod in it. And I love that word. I love the idea that everyone should try and reach this demigod status. But when you do that in ChatGPT, put your beliefs in as well.
Sure.
So this is the plan I want, but base it on my fundamental, this is who I am beliefs of, and get your 5 and then put them in, because otherwise it's going to come out with some generic plan that it could have given to like some other Charlie, but you want like your plan.
I think that's a golden piece of advice. Golden piece of advice to add that belief systems in. If we start to wrap things up and people want to utilize AI to the biggest degree in the next 2 to 3 years, what would be your advice to someone as a finishing note?
Stay super open-minded about what could happen. Don't expect it to solve all of your problems straight away, but be open to the idea that if you get involved now, it will solve all your problems in the future. Start at the very bottom rung of just learn how to prompt and understand the fundamental bits of the system, and then stay away from getting shiny object syndrome. Only use tools that match the stuff that you're already doing. Don't add anything, and base it all on your beliefs. Don't make anything generic. Don't put anything out there that you're not proud of. Base it all on the stuff you already believe, that you already know makes a difference, and try and expand that first.
In my opinion, of what you just said, the big thing that stuck out to me, the biggest mistake I see people making already, is the red shiny object of go and do all this random shit that doesn't actually solve any problem you have right now. You're just becoming a busier fool rather than actually solving the problems you have and just using AI to solve them and save yourself time.
Yeah, we don't want to be busy fools.
That's how you stay broke.
Yep.
Big thank you for your time today. Where's the best place for people to find out more about you?
If you go to jodiecook.com, JODIECOOK.com, then that is where my private list is there, and that's where I share out things like my best prompts, my YouTube videos, and also secret source requests for collecting stories to use for my Forbes articles. So that's the best place to get involved, and I'll hopefully see them there.
Cool. Make sure you check out. Big thank you for your time. Anyone who enjoyed the podcast, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe, and share it with a friend. And we'll see you next episode very soon.